All right, we are live, or we should be. Intro music is cute. Tweets going
Podcasting
out.
from Boston, Massachusetts and Los Angeles, California. This is AVShopTalk, covering the latest audiovisual trends and emerging technologies. This is where the AV pros come to talk shop. With your hosts, Nate Schneider and Jason Griffin.
All right, InfoComm 2015 is upon us. We've got Tim Albright and George Tucker on the call. We are going to be talking shop with these guys tonight. Let me switch the camera. Hello there. Welcome to the AVShopTalk podcast. Well, actually, AVShopTalk Live, and I'm like a kid in a candy store today. I'm pretty excited to be talking with these two gentlemen here. And, this is a pre-show hangout. We're going to talk about the show, what we think. We're going to hear what the AV Nation guys are up to, what makes this show different for them this year, and maybe make some predictions. A lot of stuff I want to talk about tonight. But just to cover a few bases here, you guys can listen and participate in the Hangout on-air chat if you're logged into Google+. And you can also tweet us at AVShopTalk if you want to interact that way. So this is a live recording. Feel free to participate. We'd love to hear what you guys are thinking. If you're listening out there, tuning in from wherever you may be tuning in from, let me without any further ado, introduce our guests. We've got Tim Albright, as I mentioned. He's the Director of Operations at Innovad and the owner and president of AVNation.tv. You know him from the AV Week podcast. Tim, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. Thanks, Nate, and thanks, Jason.
You got it. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, we're definitely excited to be talking with you guys. Love the podcast. AV Week is a must listen. I got to hear what you guys are talking about because it helps me stay up to date. So I really appreciate that. And now we'll go over to George. George Tucker is, you can find him at Tucker2s on pretty much anywhere in social media. Is that right, George?
That is correct. You have been listening.
I know your taglines and everything, man. I'm like one of those fanboys. But George Tucker is the engineering coordinator at World Stage and co-founder and advisory board member of AVNation.tv. So, George, you're joining the call from New York, I believe, right?
Yeah, Yonkers, New York. Yonkers, East Side.
Right.
But yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Really looking forward to this. Now, I did have a little surprise for you guys. I wanted to throw in. I know there's a lot of people prepping for the CTS-D. Tim, I know you've mentioned the CTS-D.
Yeah, I hate it.
Do you
I
have
failed
the
it.
CTS-D?
No, I failed it. I good Lord, it's been 4 years now. And actually, Harry made, and is also a board member of ours, and his lovely wife Dawn. But Harry and I took it 4 years ago now. I think actually we sat in the same session, and I think I missed it by like 5 points, and Harry got his. So he has yet to let me live that down. But no, I have not gone back and gotten it. Getting it.
Oh man. Well, maybe we'll help you out with that tonight. Before we get going here, here's the hashtags on Twitter. We'll be monitoring these during the show. Hashtag InfoComm15, hashtag AVSelfie, and at AVShopTalk. The AVSelfie thing really is pretty cool. This is a little tweet that I guess went somewhat viral among the AV industry last year. It was a little impromptu.
That was an awesome one.
Tweets. I got to meet AV Grump, AV Dawn for the first time out here. Actually, before his Twitter handle was AV Grump. So that was pretty cool.
He was Mr. AV Dawn at that point, wasn't he?
Yeah.
In that picture, you've got Mark Coxon, you've got Kelly Perkins, who's AVI Kelly at this point. You've got Mike Brandis, who at that point still worked in Florida, but now he works for Vadio. And of course, you Nate. But that was a great little get together.
Yeah, that was fun. I had a good. George, you were there, weren't you?
Yes, I was, but I normally arrive a little bit later.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Fashionably late.
Fashionably late. Yes.
Gotcha. That was fun. Oh, Jason, I got to go over to you, man. How are you doing over there? I left you in the dark.
I'm over here. It's all right.
There's a Jason on the show?
Right.
Yeah, who's Jason?
There's a Jason?
You know, I anticipated as much being the residential guy at an Infocom conversation, so no worries.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
I mean, here's
Jason,
the residential, the internet stuff. I mean, I still contend there's a fair amount of residential stuff. A couple
Well,
of
there's
guys
a lot of
with
overlap,
us,
of course,
Todd
definitely.
Boom. Yes. But yeah. So.
Definitely, but yeah, Nate, I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here. We had a great time chatting with at least half of these gentlemen. We had Tim on prior to ISE, and we had a great time doing that episode. I think it's it's always an exciting time in the industry leading up to these shows, and we're all excited to see what's going to be covered and what is going to come of the event. So I was looking forward to sitting down with everybody tonight and just kind of hashing that out and seeing what everybody's getting excited about this year.
yeah, and you've got the definitely got the Resi perspective, which I think is cool. You've got some news, right? Did you want to break any news tonight, or are you still?
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to. Yeah, I actually something my wife and I have been planning for quite some time, but I guess this would technically be the first time I'm sort of announcing it on any of my social media or public channels. Is that we're actually going to be relocating to Denver this July, so just about a month from now.
Wow.
And I've had a good run out here in Los Angeles, and it's been an honor and a privilege to work with VIA, my current employer. But my wife and I, having our daughter 6 months ago, we're just sort of reevaluating. Priorities sort of shift when kids come into play, and we're looking for kind of a better place we feel like to raise a family. So I've got connections out in Colorado. I used to live out there, and actually just got back from some travel out there and was able to seal the deal on some employment, and really feel like I'm excited to move forward with the company and found a place to live and all of that. So everything is good. We're super excited.
That's
Very
great,
cool.
man.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we'll have to change our intro. No longer podcasting from Los Angeles, but
That's
from
it.
Denver.
From the Mile High, that's right.
Yeah, that'll be great. All right, guys. Well, Tim, George, I think you guys see what's coming up here in the little thumbnail here. I got a little surprise for you. So, Tim, do you want to be my study buddy? I'm going to be studying all summer for this, and I figured, there's probably some people watching this show that are studying, getting ready. Let's go through some of these questions and talk about them.
All right.
And, it'll be fun. Some of them, the reason why, I'm studying for this exam last Saturday, and some of these questions on the prep exam, which it's public, anyone can go down and download it. That's what these questions are from. CTS-D prep exam. Some of them, the choices just make me laugh out loud, and I don't know. I thought it'd be fun to go through some of it. So, you guys are good sports.
So you say now.
All right, who wants to take the first one? So I kick it over to Tim. Let's kick it over to you, Tim. What do you? Let me read this first question for you. During the design phase of a project that has many network-enabled AV devices, what will the IT team need from the AV designers? Is it A, cable ties, B, a list of AV non-networked devices, C, bandwidth requirements, or D, an addendum to the SLA?
E, MAC addresses. That's what they'll need.
Not according to Infocom, Tim.
Because I know. The answer probably is C if I had to guess.
Oh.
All right.
You got it right, man.
Now, here's my contention with this question, is that the IT department wants it all because they think they need it all.
Oh, okay.
And they need MAC addresses because they're most likely going to do. They're not going to do static IP. They're going to do DHCP, which means they need MAC addresses to it. Yeah.
I just love how all the technical guys in the room don't even mention that cable ties is actually an option on that multiple choice.
Well, that's the one that made me laugh.
Well, yeah. Well, that's kind of the gimmick, It's when you're trying to figure out which one it's not. It's like, I don't think it's that one. So you can,
All right, moving right along. George, we'll kick this one over to you. This one, This is a trick question. I take some issue with this one, but so we'll kick it around. How can the AV designer address ambient noise issues caused by HVAC equipment and ductwork vibration? Is it A, silencers, baffles, and insulation panels? B, place dampers near diffusers and grills? C, using larger ducts and high-speed fans where practical? Or D, use sensible heat rather than latent heat?
It's been a long time since I've got my CTS. It was back in the days of the computer. So all you do was go, yeah. If I had to guess, it's been a while, I'm going to go with A.
And
Cool. See?
Very nice.
Some of the knowledge does stick. Very interesting.
you got it. You got it. Well, let's move right ahead. Jason, do you want to read this question? I don't know if the
I'll go for it.
The text is too blurry, but
Yeah, no, I'll read it. It'll be interesting to see if I know the answer.
Sure.
When designing an AV control system in a building that requires the fire control system to be integrated, what is a major concern if the fire alarm initiates? The lights staying on in the room? B, an email being sent out? C, the projector doesn't turn off? D, the window blinds stay up?
I got this one wrong. Full disclosure, I went with the wrong one.
What
here.
is a major concern if the fire alarm initiates or goes off?
I gave it away.
You did.
I didn't see.
I'm going to guess B.
Oh, wait.
Is that your final answer?
So it's the light staying on, but
You know, the way that's worded is kind of tricky. Like, what is a
I
major
thought it was
concern?
the blinds stay up. Because like if the fire alarm goes off, you're gonna want to jump out the window, right? If there's a fire, you don't want the blinds in your way.
Very
On the 36th
fair
floor?
point.
Well, okay. Okay, so the lights might be better. Anyway, I forgot the last one too. Silencers, baffles, and insulation panels. See, this is interesting because are AV designers really acousticians?
But do we need to be?
Some are.
That's part of the problem.
Well,
I mean, do we have the
and
authority to tell somebody like you need silencers and baffles here, and these are the what?
as a design consultant, yes, absolutely you do. Because here's the thing: what this is talking about is you've got ambient noise issues caused by the HVAC system, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Otherwise known as the low rumble.
I was going to say, you know, speaking from the residential perspective, the answer to this would be E, call the HVAC guy.
Yeah, but he doesn't know. He's going to tell you, yeah, it's fine, it's you.
Yeah, see, that's what I was thinking.
Your microphones are too sensitive. That's the problem right there, see?
Yeah.
With the exception of, I guess, you know, the only time we, in my direct line of work, have ever been directly involved in this is in like a very high-end dedicated theater. In that case, we'll get involved, but... Yeah, interesting question.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
think about it. Teleconferencing, huddle rooms, those are still going to cause those kind of noises, and that could ruin any kind of intelligibility for
Very
a
true.
conversation. So especially, you know, if you're up here in the Northeast during the summer or in Los Angeles, ACs run almost nonstop, right?
Yeah.
That is very true.
So, you know, unless you just get used to it like a low rumble white noise in the background, it's a concern.
I think that the trickiness is the wording, too. It's like, how can the AV designer address these issues? They address them with silencers, baffles, like, and insulation panels. It's just kind of...
Because you see here, the HVAC guy's not going to do nothing about it, see? He's going to tell you it's your problem, see? I do it all over the place, see? And it's just the way it works.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. Okay.
I got the same system in my house, see? I don't hear it.
Yeah, exactly.
George
All
has
right,
spent way
this
too
one-
many years in the East.
Jason, you want to take a stab at this one, too?
I'll take a stab at this one. All right, guys. The two basic AV signal types are A, dynamic and static, B, bit and megabyte, C, sine and cosine, D, digital and analog. The two basic AV signal types. And don't everyone jump at once.
Well, I would
An
say
open
it's
question?
D.
Yeah,
Open
D.
question. D, okay. Sorry, I should have clarified. Okay.
Is that
all right.
your final answer?
Good. I was getting a little worried about you guys.
you want to Morse code your friend?
Oh.
They use this at Crestron
Somebody's got a new
Reunion, right?
toy. Yeah, exactly. Ham license was a requirement.
Okay, it was D. Tim was right. Good job, guys. Okay, you had enough of this test? We got one question left, I think. In an AV project involving a courtroom, this one made me crack up. Sight lines from the jury box are obscured by an architectural feature. How should the issue be addressed? A, communicate with the project manager. B, contact the architect with recommended changes. C, let the judge manage the situation. Or D, no consult is necessary. No consult is necessary. Move forward with your recommendations.
Well, you are dealing with architects, so let's start with that. I'm going to say it's B.
I would concur.
Contact the architect.
Yeah.
George, you concur?
Yeah, I'm going for B, Bravo.
And the answer is...
Oh.
Oh.
And that's a tricky question because what if you are the project manager? Doesn't say you're not the project manager.
Well, it doesn't say you're not the project manager, but then the project manager would have to go to the architect or the GC, and the GC would have to go to the architect.
Myself.
But then again, the architect's never going to listen to the AV guy anyways.
Well, this is true too. Yes.
Yeah.
I just made me laugh because it's, let the judge manage the situation. I just thought that was hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm the only one, but...
I don't know. Have you met some judges?
No.
They would end. Again, Georgia spent way too many years in the East.
Not in courtrooms, though. I'm glad you said that. It's not that I spent a lot of time in courtrooms. On either side,
guys. Well, that was a fun little intro here, but thanks for being good sports there. That was good studying though. If anybody's studying to take the test there, some of those questions might be on the test, and that might have helped you pass. So, and Tim, if you want to be my study buddy, invite's open.
All right. I may take you up on that if I decide to go back for it.
I'm going to study really hard this summer and take the test in the fall. So that's the only reason why I've got these questions in the forefront of my mind. But
I'm just disappointed there was no Moore's law or Ohm's law. Moore's law.
Yeah.
No, well, I didn't want to. I figured 100 questions would be a little too long for this little hangout here. We're already like 25 minutes in, so
a little inverse square,
Yeah. Some of that. Oh, there were some like that. The power efficiency of an amplifier is 65%, and the little 120 volts is you have to.
And resistance versus voltage and amperage.
Divide by pi. That's all I say. Divide by pi.
All right, guys. Well, that was fun. Let's get into the Infocom 2015 stuff. What is going on with AV Nation this year? What makes this year different than some of the past years where you guys have gone to cover the show?
Mr. Tucker?
Okay, well, it felt a lot like a Seder. That was a question. So we're doing a lot of stuff. We've got AVSelfie coming back. We've got a bunch of recordings going live from our booth. We've got the AV tweet up. We're doing a bunch of booth coverages. All of us will be tweeting and writing about it from the show floor as it goes on. Some of it's standard, but a lot of it sort of new territory for us, just sort of inch by inch growing outward and how we cover things and who we bring into the fold. So it'll be a very interesting show.
Yeah, one of the things that we're doing different, I guess, from years past, and it's actually it was kind of an outgrowth from our team, not me. I'll be the first to admit that I'm the one that came kicking and screaming to this idea. But people like George and Neto and Josh and Matt and everybody, they pushed to record on the show floor. In years past, we've got kind of a little ready room that we would record in, and it was our own little haven. But they've kind of pushed us and said, we can do it on the show floor. It's more exciting there. It's, you get the energy and the traffic and everything. And so that is one of the, I think.
Okay, so it looks. I think I lost audio there from Tim. But you guys are going to be recording out on the show floor.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the interviews and some of the shows, like the Live AV Week, will be done right from our booth, 6667, number I'm fond of. It's one digit too many. But it's going to be some fun stuff. I mean, people can come by. It's a little bit like being in a fishbowl, but it's also very interesting for people to see how we do what we do. When you guys know, there's a process, but getting people through and not having to go all the way to what they call the North 40 out there and to some of the press rooms to do your interview is a benefit. So it'll be a lot of fun in that way, and we can get back out on the show floor very quickly. So it's a benefit for all around.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, I just want to touch high level, and we'll start with Tim here. Tim, sorry we lost you there a second ago, so George kind of jumped in and picked up where he left off. But I just kind of want to, let's talk about InfoComm from a big picture perspective. And I know that, every time there's a big trade show, I typically go into it with one or two things in mind that I'm particularly like looking to see or I'm excited about. And so I guess if you could pick one or maybe two things, broad themes or maybe particular technologies that you're excited about at this year's InfoComm, what would you say those are?
I almost said 4K, right? And you asked me a month ago, and I probably would have said the same thing. But I'm actually more looking forward to display from a display standpoint. High dynamic range or HDR displays. These are something that kind of came around CES. That was a big buzzword. And then the other thing I'm looking for is infrastructure. It goes hand in hand with 2K and 4K, but that's the realization from someone who designs and programs and kind of looks at these systems 18 months ahead of time. We're going to run into a bandwidth issue where we're not going to be able to transport these higher resolutions, these bigger file sizes, over the standard copper twisted pair and infrastructure. It simply will not take it eventually, right? Doesn't mean today, tomorrow, or even next year. But you start looking 24 months, 48 months down the line, we're going to be running into it. And so that's the other thing I'm looking forward to is seeing what some of these companies like Just Add Power and SVSI and Atlanta and Clear One even are doing with some higher resolution transports.
An IP-based T, that's a new thing I just heard for the first time this month. I have to check that out.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff when you get into whole conversations about getting everything on the network with companies like Just Add Power versus maybe more point-to-point technologies like HD-based T, who's obviously going to have a big presence at the show. And yeah, I think those are two great themes that anybody really interested in InfoComm and is watching this year should be paying attention to. Before we maybe dive deeper into any specific technology, George, I want to give you the opportunity to kind of field that same question. Going into InfoComm this year, are there one or maybe two technologies or products that you're going to be kind of paying particular attention to?
Well, having done mostly commercial and now live events work in my career, one of the things I'm really interested in is streaming. So it's kind of related, but live streaming is a really big thing in the event staging world now. It's becoming more and more a common part of what we do. They want to have an event, show it there, but also then, say, transmit it to Los Angeles or to Denver or to Minnesota, where the other offices can watch. So that technology, understanding the backbone and the infrastructure, as well as some of the gear that can work in a professional world, not just in, say, a podcasting world, will really work. So everybody from the guys like Aja and even Matrox and Blackmagic, I'm looking at a lot of those guys, as well as some of the bigger players, to say, what do you got that does that beyond just being a huddle room space device?
Yeah, definitely. I know that's like something I've been seeing a lot of, just reading the coverage of InfoComm leading up to it, and the collaboration huddle space gets a ton of coverage. But it's interesting, the live streaming thing is becoming an increasingly popular, and I would imagine, it's not something I do as a profession, but I would imagine that's in a lot higher demand right now. George, is that something that you're already kind of dealing with? Do you feel like there's good products out there that you're currently using that maybe you're going to stop by and check out their booths to look for very particular things, or is this something that you're just sort of getting kind of pulled into because of the demand?
I'm looking at it from both perspectives. Partly for AVNation. Do we step away at some point from doing Google and do, in-studio stuff? But also...
Like the TriCaster?
Yeah, like TriCaster and the rest of those guys. But, that's a lot of backbone stuff, and those are very high-end. But there's other companies that make simple encoders that allow you to do even multiple camera switching, via an IP control. And it has the inputs, and they're $500 to $2,000 a piece, which is not unreasonable in the price range for these things. And it will work with, say, YouTube or Vimeo or Ustream and Stickcam, but could also be used in a sort of more professional backbone for streaming, the ones that you really want to guarantee that will go private and have secure and, say, high-quality video. So those devices being affordable is a key, as well as having the functions without having to rent a truck, as it were.
Yeah. Well, speaking of affordable, have you messed around with this open broadcast software, OBS? Have you heard of that?
I've heard of it, but I haven't dealt with it at all. No.
Yeah, because we mentioned the TriCaster. I mean, that you're going to be spending 10, 15, 20 grand on a box to do something like that. But I mean, they do have software-based things out there right now that are free and they're open source, and it's just a whole other world once you go down that rabbit hole to try to move away from a purpose-built box and you try to kludge together some sort of broadcast PC. I don't know. But that's something cool that I want to explore more. At least for podcasting and stuff. I haven't got too far into the open broadcaster stuff, but definitely something to keep my eye on.
And we're not that far away. I mean, if you're doing a huddle room and you want it to be live, and you want that efficiency, but you don't want it to be a free platform like Google Plus, you have that option, and it works just fine. And again, you want security, you want reliability, and that's still the question there is, where can you do it, and then learn how to manage the bandwidth new needs.
Well, and you also got, George mentioned the huddle spaces. You've got products, I know Kramer and AMX both do, and I think even Crestron does, where they will take, they're these small little devices, you can stick them behind a display, and they will wirelessly connect to this box, which has Skype on it and has a version of Link on it, which Microsoft has started calling Skype for Business now. Mm-hmm. It's two separate things. Please don't get it confused, because if you have a Skype for Business account, it's not the same thing as a Skype account. So anyhow, but they will do those encoded based. We use Google Hangouts. Obviously, you guys too. It's great. It's free. Not as secure as probably I don't know, IBM would like it to be. But you throw the word Microsoft on there, and you get a little bit more sense of security. And they're doing that already, where they're connecting folks remotely and giving you the ability to take that and possibly use it at another time once you verify it's secure and everything.
Gotcha. Now, definitely excited for this show. I think we mentioned HDR. We mentioned a couple different things that you guys are looking out for. We just recorded an episode with Alan Chalmers all about HDR, and that's man, he's been working on this stuff for the last 6 years. So I do think HDR is going to be a huge thing. Don't know if we're there yet, and I think the big thing when you mention HDR is that it's concerning that there's not really a standard yet for it. It's part of the 4K UHD equation, but there is no there's no standard. So the potential for Samsung to have its version of HDR and Sony to have its version of HDR and so on and so forth, and nothing is interoperable or plays nicely together. I think that's kind of the big concern I have, is that people are going to be rushing to be the first one to slap HDR on the side of their box, and it's going to be a painful uphill battle until we really see it come to fruition. But do you guys agree? Do you disagree with that? Do you think we're in that boat?
Well, I would agree with you that it's kind of wrapped into this 2K, 4K thing, which I think is unfortunate because it's not really a resolution, right? And that's the fallacy of that. It's a way for us to get a much prettier picture and a much better picture than what we've been living with for, let's say the last 10 years with 1080p, and without jumping to the giant resolutions of UHD/4K, which from someone who's dealing with infrastructure, that's a huge deal, right? I mean, I mentioned the fact that I'm looking for infrastructure solutions at InfoComm this year. The HDR, yes, there's going to be a little bit more information, but it's not going to be a giant leap in the number of the amount of bandwidth that requirements going from 1080p to 1080p HDR. That's not that big of a jump as far as the amount of information you're transmitting. Going from 1080p to 4K is a monumental leap. I mean, if you just for uncompressed, say that up front, uncompressed 4K, true 4K, actually, for 4,000, you're pushing 17, 18 gigs. All right, 17, 18 gigabytes worth of information. When we're living in a digital and IT world right now, where a 10 gig backbone is something to be proud about, right? I know education institutions that are still running 1 gig, and they're perfectly fine with it, right? So the fact that we are surpassing, almost doubling a 10 gig backbone infrastructure, again, we're talking about an IT infrastructure here, when you want to push, uncompressed 4K, that little jump between 1080p and 1080p with high dynamic range, I think is probably the most efficient use of our technology and the most efficient use of infrastructure to get what we're all looking for, and that's just a flat out better picture. I mean, let's be honest here. What is resolution jumps? It's about better picture. It's about better quality. It's about more realism and the overall experience. That is probably the most efficient use of the resources we have is going to 1080p HDR. Now, as far as standard and stuff like that, you're right. Everybody's going to be, it's the old wild, wild west until we kind of settle on one or two, and it'll come down to what every other resolution argument has been, and that's going to come down to content creators and how they're pushing, and if they start creating things for HDR. If they don't, if they leave it up to the display manufacturers, it's going to take a little bit longer, because you're right. Everybody wants to be the standard bearer, a la, HD DVD versus Blu-ray.
Yeah, and I think Dolby Vision is like, they're the first, they're using like laser projectors to achieve HDR in the cinema. I think it was Tomorrowland, which is the first movie released in Dolby Vision. Jason, you would know more about that coming from the Resi side. You've been keeping up with Dolby Vision there and what they're doing in the theaters there?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I'm not like totally on top of all of the details, but it's Dolby Vision is an exciting deal. I mean, it definitely, I think, speaks to what the commercial cinemas are having to do, right, to draw people in. I mean, it's gotten to the point now where it's very easy for most of my clients now, I would say actually all of my clients now, to invest a little bit of money and have a nice little home media room. And so the commercial cinemas have really had to kind of get creative and come up with ways that are going to draw us into the theater. And I think Dolby Vision is a perfect example of that. HDR to me is a very exciting technology. I know that right now a lot of the buzz is about the extra pixels, and that's kind of been, if we kind of jump back a year from now and we were preparing for InfoComm 2014, that was really the big theme of the show. We talked about it over and over again. It was 4K, it was UHD, but hardly anyone was talking about HDR. And to me, it's a technology that I think it makes a lot more sense for some of the reasons that Tim has already laid out. And in addition to that, it's one of these technologies that can have a significant impact on the quality of the picture that you're looking at, no matter how big your screen is. And that's one of the things that very few people talk about, other than AV professionals. Like, most of us know that, but as far as consumers go, very, very few of them realize that the smaller your screen, the less those extra pixels matter, right? Versus a technology like HDR, where it could be a 42 or a 50-inch screen, and you're still going to see a dramatic difference, no matter what the size of your screen. So it's an interesting conversation, and it's certainly something that I won't be at InfoComm this year, but it's one of the themes that I'm looking to to keep an eye on from afar. George, I don't know if you have any thoughts. We haven't come to you here in a little bit. If you have any thoughts on kind of the HDR conversation or 4K and video in general, and kind of the infrastructure of how we're going to support all this technology, because I feel like it's kind of a case of the technology getting a little bit ahead of the infrastructure and what we're able to support. And I'd be curious to hear some of your thoughts on that.
I want to wax rhapsodic about it, but I'm going to be snarky because the first thing I thought in listening to both you and Tim was, I'm in the wrong business. I want to be in the infrastructure cable business. Because the change-outs that's going to happen over the next few years is either going to make it successful or no one's going to do it. But if they all do it and they keep stepping up, that's a lot of money. I just want to be in the business of putting the wire in. That's a lot of cost right there, and that's my concern with it. Is that if you're going to do this uncompressed and all that other stuff, that's a lot of new wire, a lot of new switches, a lot of new connectivity going on, and that's a good business to be in.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
if they accept it and it doesn't move too fast, it would be a good business.
Yeah, definitely. Well, all right, guys, we've kind of talked about the video and the infrastructure, and those are obviously big themes for the show. One of the questions I wanted to make sure that we hit on before we get start to run out of time is the Keynote. I saw something about the Keynote, and I don't know if you guys, we're not going to dive into too much detail, so don't expect you to know who all the panelists are or anything, but want to get your general thoughts on it. It's the Keynote is about the Internet of Things and connectivity, and how all of this technology revolving around connectivity and how everything around us is connected now. How does this all play into AV, and where are the opportunities, where are the challenges, what is this going to put in front of us? So I'll leave the question pretty open-ended, and Tim, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts about the Keynote and the Internet of Things, and how this kind of plays into the to the AV and integration space?
Well, I think it's, first of all, it's different. It's a different Keynote than in the past. In the past, you will typically have a technologist come up and speak to us as AV professionals. Kind of a one-to-many conversation. I remember a few years ago, it was the first time I'd ever heard cloud computing, and it was one of the heads of HP. This year, you got a guy by the name of Nick Bilton. Nick is a New York Times columnist, reporter, huge in the technology space, and he's moderating a panel of AV engineering professionals, and that's exciting to me. Right, I mean, not that the typical Keynote. Hey, this person is smart and important, and they're going to give us some knowledge. That's important too. But you've got a technologist who's moderating a panel of technologists of people that we're going to walk the show floor and go to these folks' booths. Right, you have Samsung, you've got Fred Bargatze from Crestron. You've got some really smart people on this stage, and I think this it's a unique Keynote. I'm kind of excited to see where these AV professionals see the industry going as far as Internet of Things.
Yeah, definitely. It's a fascinating technology. It's one that I follow a lot, being on the residential side of the business, because we're just seeing such massive infiltration and with just smart home products entering kind of the consumer mainstream in a way that we've never really seen before. And so it's definitely a conversation that I'm keeping a very close eye on. But I was kind of surprised to see that was going to be the Infocom Keynote, and I was curious to get your guys' thoughts on that. George, do you have anything you want to add to that sort of specific point about the convergence of the Internet of Things with AV?
It is going to be a sea change. I'm one of those proponents who sees it coming, and based on some of my experience with manufacturers like Crestron, it is something that they've been looking at for a good long time. Why? Because it's low-cost devices that can be changed easily, that can be changed out easily, that you can embed with feature-rich stuff or not, and it allows you to expand a distributed control and media system or an infrastructure very easily. They're low power, they're high bandwidth, they're not really things that you need to build great big boxes for and need to have very expensive technology for. So it's a win-win if it gets implemented. I know I've written an article in Commercial Integrator a couple of months ago about the BIoT, which was the building Internet of Things that people like the Comm folks were talking about. And for them, these are clusters. Internet of Things are not just your individual islands of houses that maybe let you use your smartphone. They are clusters that let you control great swaths of real estate or buildings or apartment complexes with a single network. They're small devices that get added quickly, and you can then negotiate with the power companies. You can then manage your load shedding. You become an island unto yourself in many, many ways, and that's a very powerful thing to have. That's the real power to me of the Internet of Things. It's not just the control of your home with a cheap device, but that you can then control how the energy is managed, how the systems are managed. That really is where the big deal is going to be, I think.
Yeah, now, when you mentioned managing power and everything at your house, and we're getting down into this Internet of Things, I keep thinking back to the Apple Watch for some reason, and just it knowing where you are, or even the Android platform. Tim, I was watching AV Week with you had Paul Zealy on there, and he was talking about how he doesn't like when it knows where he is and tries to give him recommendations, you know. And I'm the same way. It tells me, oh, you know, you have 46 minutes to work, you know, and I'm like, I'm not going to work today, you know. Why does it think I'm going to work? But most of the time it's right, you know. It knows when I'm going to work, you know, when I'm coming home. Do you think that, you know, with the Internet of Things, maybe the Apple Watch isn't going to necessarily take off? But what about the Apple Ring? If I were to predict the future, what about something smaller that could fit on your finger, that knew where you are, that could get the bio information so that somebody couldn't steal your ring? It was a token that was wearable that could authenticate who you are. I think maybe that's going to be, if I had to make a prediction, I think that might be the next step in the Internet of Things and kind of integrating with people's lives. But I don't know. The whole thing kind of freaks me out a little bit at the same time.
Well, here's the thing, and not to get off into, but we're 90. I'm going to say 90% of AV professionals I've met, regardless of where they come in life, are geek, right? They pop culture. You can be a Star Trek fan, you can be a Star Wars fan, you can be like me and like both equally for different reasons. But think about Star Trek for a second, right? And you know, there are certain things that happen in Star Trek that the computer on the ship is authenticating you constantly, allowing you in places, not allowing you in other places. There are security protocols. You have access to certain areas. The holodeck is a whole other thing. These are all things where a computer, a centralized program, is constantly monitoring you. Now, there's a lot of us who grew up, we're all for roughly the same age-ish, who grew up going, you know what, Star Trek or Star Wars is really cool, I would love that technology. This is the genesis of that, right? This is the seedling of that. I have no problem with Google knowing where I am. I am a huge Google user. I have an Android phone. I use Gmail for literally every email address I have. My AV Nation stuff goes through there. I have a Gmail account. I don't have a problem with it, right? And that's basically because I've gone through and I've looked at the settings and this, that, and the other. On the other hand, my wife has an iPhone, right? And there are certain settings that we can choose to set on those. If you do have a problem with it, set them. Set the things down to the lowest common. But back to your question, the Ring or some other sort of wearable device, yeah, that's where we're going. Yes, it is. It's where we're going because two things. First of all, you have the capability of using not only your own biometrics, but you as a person. I mean, think about latchkey kids, and I was a latchkey kid growing up. Both of my parents worked. There's one of the guys that we met, Jason, one of the guys we met at CEDIA last year, the Chewy. Sean from Get Chewy. I could set up, now I haven't gotten one yet, but I could set up basically a visual doorbell where my 9 and my 6, 7-year-old could come home, they'd show their face, it unlocks the door, and bada boom, bada bing. There are no more lost keys. I can't tell you how many, tens of hundreds of dollars my parents probably spent while I was growing up for the number of keys I lost. So, this is kind of where we're going, guys. Yes, there are going to be pains. Yes, there are going to be times where we go, wait, I'm not quite comfortable with that. a conversation can be had and we can move on. But this is, in my opinion, kind of where we're going.
Yeah, I mean, it's all very interesting. I spend a lot of time thinking about this in the home, but I don't think about it as much in the commercial space. And George, I want to let you jump in here because you seem to have a strong opinion there on some of what Tim said. But George, give us your general thoughts on. I guess we're kind of going into a little unexpected territory for me, at least, in terms of Infocom, but wearable technology in the AV space. I mean, share some of your thoughts with us.
Well, here's my my excitability. I agree with you almost utterly and completely about where these devices will be doing things. I don't think they're going to be wearable. I think they're going to be embeddable. They're biohacked. This is going to be the age where that extreme sort of cult of people who are biohacking themselves now by inserting microchips and super magnets and things like that into their bodies are the leading edge of what we're doing. That's where it comes. Because a ring, a watch, a piece of clothing can be lost, misplaced, damaged. Something inside of you cannot. We already do it with the animals with their RFID tags to find them when they're lost or if they show up at a vet. But what is the most convenient thing? You know, fingerprints, yes, but fingerprints can be faked. Fingerprints are not always reliable. People get damaged. But embeddable technology that makes you, part bionic, I guess, if you wish, are where this will eventually go. Because that's where the most convenient place for it, and it will then be universally accepted within a universal infrastructure to react and work as it should without having to lose it ever.
Interesting.
So that was my jumping episode.
I need you to make a prediction in this case. Then are we talking about this technology for Infocom 2020, or are we talking like 2030? What's the over/under here?
I could see something significant in 2020. In my personal opinion, I could see that being something.
I saw Tim raising his hand. We're not missing you, Tim.
Go ahead, Tim. Give me your thoughts on that.
I'm just going to ask George a question. Does that mean at that point you become a gesture?
Yes, it very well may be. Yes, it very well may be. But I won't have to learn semaphore.
Yeah.
George and I have had a long-running discussion about non-touchable interfaces when it comes to control. And he did one point. He said, "I'm not a gesture because that would be, interacting with a Kinect-like device." But he's right when it comes to that is the next step. It goes even beyond wearable, and that is the embedding.
Well, what's that sci-fi movie where I can't remember the name of it. I just remember the line, "This is going to hurt a little," and he shoves like a needle the size of like a ballpoint pen into his arm and injects a little tracking device, and it's like it's got to be one of the Bourne movies or. Well,
there's a number of them. I mean, you've got The Matrix. You've got what was it? Total Recall, the original one, where he has a tracking device in his head and they pull it out through his nose.
Hunger Games too, don't they? They have tracking devices in that.
Yeah.
It's all over the place. It's an interesting conversation. Speaking of sci-fi, guys, though, I want to bring this conversation back to something that we know is actually going to be at Infocom 2015, and that is drones. Drones are everywhere. We're hearing about them constantly. There's a whole drone pavilion at Infocom 2015 this year, which I think is fascinating. I guess, George, we'll start with you on this one. I'm particularly interested to hear your thoughts on drones, given your live event background. I think this is something that's going to be, personally, I think, in very high demand with people that are producing live events and want to capture these events on video to get that beautiful aerial photography that drones enable.
The demise of the jib.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd be curious, George, to hear your thoughts on drones. Are these the real deal? How does this overlap with AV? Where are some of the opportunities? Just generally, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, okay, so aside from the spying part of it, or the personal valet that always follows you, which they have some of those. What is it? Matt Lauer had one that followed him when he was bicycling for that red nose thing, and it would just follow him.
One of them's called Air Dog. I know.
It's something Air Dog, yeah. Is it by the Air Hog people? I don't even know. But here's the deal. From the visual perspective, getting those kind of shots is pretty damn cool. Because it's sort of unobtrusive to the audience when you sort of zoom in on a lead singer or someone in a play, that little image, that tiny little drone may not be intrusive to the entire event. But they're dangerous still. We only have some recent history to show, was it Iglesias or one of those guys who got cut by one on stage, and he went to grab it. He went to grab it, and he went to go take the thing and do like they do with cameras and look into it, and he got chopped up.
But had rotors.
Yeah, the rotors chopped him up. He had hand surgery. I mean, he was bleeding like crazy.
I didn't hear
and he continued the show. Kudos to him for doing that. That's toughness. But so that kind of technology, there is an inherent danger. A jib and boom arms, at least there's something behind them that says, I have a safety feature that keeps them from falling down, usually. And they're pretty well tested. Even guide wire stuff that happens, say, over the NFL and NHL and other sports. So, drones tend to go, oops, I've lost communication, I drop out of the sky. It's sort of like a brick falling on your head. It's not always a good thing. So I see potential. I see them more for like E&G, news gathering, maybe surveying, architectural stuff, maybe for live events, getting the whole venue and or the whole arena surveyed from a perspective that would be better than just having to walk up and down the stairs. But other than that, I'm not sure. I still think they're too dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, you make very good points. I know that some of the particular use cases that I've already been reading about are, like you said, more architectural, like doing inspections on high rises and things like that, where you can get up there with a drone and really take a close look at what's going on up there without having to go through all the logistical challenges of getting an actual person up there. So there's a ton of use cases there. I think the live event thing to me is just interesting because I do see overlap there, but I think you raised some very valid concerns. Tim, I want to get your thoughts on this. Drones, they're huge. They're everywhere. It's all, anyone who's technical on Twitter, if you follow any of the main, tech hashtags or any of that, I mean, drones are everywhere. What are your thoughts on that? And how does this, kind of overlay with the AV industry? Where are some of the opportunities and challenges that this is going to present?
Well, it is huge, and who is it? Commercial Integrator is giving away one at InfoComm. So you can win a drone. I think Nate hit it on the head. It is kind of the death of the jib arm. Years ago, that was the premium shot you get in video production, whether it was live or whether it was a fully produced piece. But jibs are expensive. I mean, you're talking about the counterweight system. You're talking about the heavier your camera, the more expensive the jib has to be because of all of the mechanics involved. You can get a drone for $500, right? It kind of goes back to the magical price point of the iPad. You can get a drone for about $500. You can put a GoPro on it, or you can put a other camera on it, and you have lots of really cool things. A lot of AV professionals either still have a hand or have a division of their business does some sort of video production.
Oh, looks like Tim froze there. Audio froze. Tim, we'll wait for you to come back, and you can pick up where you left off there. Probably bad internet connection, but it looks like we got a question from Jennifer Willard. I believe she's the woman behind Women in AV, that association. I think I just heard George. You just actually were on a InfoComm. I'm sorry, AV Nation special with her, right?
I think that was Tim who interviewed her.
Was it Tim?
Yeah, it was me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, Tim,
we
you're
look
back.
alike.
I live in the Midwest. I live in the Midwest. You only have internet for every 5 or 10 minutes out of the hour. So.
Well, Nate, I'll let you run with this. I think we can kind of move back. We did get a question from Jennifer Willard, and this is kind of stepping back in the conversation. But Nate, go ahead, because she has a very interesting question here, and I want to get the guys' thoughts on it.
Yeah. So we get this question here. So she's saying, what though does the AV industry have to do with wearable technology market? With the wearable technology market, what products or services? Because it seems mostly IT-driven technology and fashion, not commercial AV. It is estimated at 15 billion market share by 2018. So she's saying there's a lot of money there, but what does this have to do with commercial AV? And that's a good question. I have some thoughts, but do you want to kick this over to you, George? You're shaking your head. How about you want to?
Well, on the commercial side, or even residential side, it's all about the big data, right? It's about knowing where you are, what you want, and how you want that. And the wearables or the embeddables that they'll become in 2020, hopefully, will know how to accommodate the environment for you, whether that environment is your home, a macro environment, or a micro environment. I hate to say it, dedicated ads or dedicated interaction with displays, whether that's for buying a ticket for a train or purchasing items. That's where they're really going to be big, because they'll have the backing of big companies that can make money off of them, and they'll build the infrastructure that'll make it work. It's sort of like the promise we wanted of WiMAX. Right? What was WiMAX promise? A municipal wide area Wi-Fi that would be able to let you watch video on the bus, the big game, and the minute you get off the bus and walk in the door, the TV in your house knows it's on, and it puts it onto the big screen automatically for you. That's sort of the technology that I think people would be willing to buy, and that's the killer app for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm thinking about this, so imagine service is a huge thing for commercial AV integration, right? Like for a company to be profitable today, you're not making money on the margins anymore, but you're trying to sell services and contracts and get folks to renew. So imagine you had your app where you could see where people are using your system. So if something goes wrong, person XYZ happened to be at the touch panel when something broke, or maybe we should do a training session on person XYZ. Maybe they don't really know how to use the system, and where people are in the room. I don't know if that seems a little outlandish or seems practical, but that's just one thing that came to mind is kind of like the analytics, the diagnosis of problems, and trying to get clients trained and using that as a tool. It might be a little over the top, but it seems definitely in the realm of possibility.
It's not over the top, and it's something that from the innovative standpoint, what we're looking at with stuff like RFID, where a professor can walk into a room, we can dynamically change a touch panel to display exactly what they want to use, or even go a step further, and that's automate the entire process of, let's say board member, Smith. They don't want to touch anything; they just want everything to magically happen. Well, that's fine. Board member Smith can have an RFID, and let's go a step further to George's embeddables. They walk into the room, their embedded chips says, this is the person in the room, this is the person who scheduled the meeting, do this, automatically, turn on the display, make the call because they've scheduled it through Outlook or whatever else scheduling device. They automatically make the VTC call, it connects the far end. They have touched nothing, right? Mm-hmm. They simply walked in the room with their embedded technology, and the room interacting with the control system and Active Directory and some other scheduling software automatically does everything. These are things that we can virtually do now. Obviously, not the embedding part, but with RFIDs and other technologies, we can dynamically automate everything without person A, B, or C touching anything in the room. We could virtually eliminate. I hate saying this as a programmer, but we could eliminate touch panels if the client so chose not to ever have that level of interface.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, there's a lot of. So I think the answer to her question is automation. I mean, things can be automated on a whole nother level. That's kind of
and data, like George said. I mean, that's a huge one as well.
Mm-hmm. Of course, the data, and I think Bluetooth Low Energy is going to be big on that too. But that's a whole nother topic here to get into. So let's move along here. We're kind of coming up on our time here. I did want to touch on a couple things. Wanted to plug the AV tweet up and your booth one more time. But George was mentioning about drones falling out of the sky, and when these things fall out of the sky, it's like a brick falling down. I did want to share with you something that happened down in El Paso, Texas. An AV, I would call it a disaster. And I think we would be remiss if we didn't at least touch on this.
Oh, you haven't seen this?
Have you seen this, Tim?
Mm.
So let me just kind of explain it here. And I'm using the Showcase app here, so I'm going to tweet out, well, not tweet out anything, but I'm going to Google Plus or whatever I'm doing here. I'm going to supposedly share a link in the live Hangout here. And this is from the El Paso Times. It says, televisions fall during business hours. This is at an eatery, a pub down in El Paso, Texas. And
there's video of this.
There is. There is. There's the original Facebook video. I can also share, I believe. I don't know if you guys are seeing these links, but maybe it's going to be. you'll see the links when you go back and watch the show later or something like that. But yeah, this was a Facebook video that went viral. It's got over 100,000 hits, and basically you're seeing the aftermath of 4 displays falling off the ceiling.
There's a lot of questions there.
Well,
I see a stem only on one of them.
No, there's stems on the rest of them.
Are there?
It looks like there is. I shouldn't say there is, but
I can't tell.
It's funny because initially I thought if you look at the one that's sort of in the middle, I was saying to Nate, well, at least they put safety cables on, and then Nate made a good point. He's like, I don't think that's safety cable. I think that's just like the electrical wiring.
Yep.
The electrical wire and the video cables maybe.
Yeah, video.
Which I should have known, right? I mean, these guys obviously weren't thinking about safety. So.
Now, this is why you want the large gauge video cable. It acts as a
Exactly.
Yeah, we'll go with RG6, and then we don't have to worry about the safety chain.
I suppose it just speaks to my tendency to give people too much credit, but yeah, this was a crazy video. I mean, really, a life safety issue. It's one of these things that we're the AV guy on most of our jobs, and a lot of people. I don't want to say. I certainly don't want to say look down on us, but we're the AV guy. We're sort of the cherry on top, and what we do maybe isn't necessarily integral to the structure of the building or a life safety issue. But this kind of thing just goes to prove that it is. And really, you go out and hire the lowest bidder or get your brother-in-law to come in and do it. This is the kind of thing that happens. And I think any AV professional should look at something like this and be aware that stuff like this actually does and can happen. And it's so important to, stress to your employees and your clients that this is a real concern. I mean, this is something that Nate jumped all over and was really diving in and covering it because of that. I mean, this is a big deal.
I was fascinated by this story for a couple days, just trying to figure out more details. The only reason I found out about it was because it did go viral on Facebook. I found it on the AV Installation Nightmares Facebook page.
I love that page, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah. Gerald Stevens has, and his AV buddies there have some. They got a great thing going there. They've got 1,500 members now. That group. So if you're not familiar with AV Installation Nightmares, definitely request to join that group. But that's where I found out about this, and I was actually tweeting back with an intern at the El Paso Times, trying to find more information about this to see if they did a follow-up story. But the telling thing about this incident down there. I mean, luckily nobody got hurt. It was just lucky that nobody was seriously injured. But he was quoted. The bar manager was quoted as saying, "It's not a big deal. It was just the luck of the draw." Now,
what?
No, seriously.
Well,
he's quoted as saying that in the El Paso. Now, if he's saying that, that is like a red flag that this was my cousin did this for cheap. I don't think they hired a company to do this.
The video's still on. They can serve beer and watch the game.
Or they did it. I mean, let's take it even a step back. Maybe the bar manager did it.
Ooh, that's a major violation, boy. Oof.
Yeah. So
I don't know about Texas, but New York, they'd be like, "You're done."
Yeah. I mean, I think it's important to touch on this because a lot of the comments were kind of snarky and sarcastic and like, "Oh, the spilt beer," and I'm like, "Okay, yeah, that's funny," but this was a serious thing. So I thought if anybody's going to talk about it, it should be us, and we should kind of, have some lessons learned here. I mean, this is a serious thing. That's why you got to go with a reputable firm. The do-it-yourself thing from a ceiling.
Well, and Nate go back to the first thing we did, which was the quiz. As neat as it was, the CTS-D does serve a purpose, right? I mean, that does give you at least a level of expectation of not only professionalism, but of safety, right? Of doing things correctly, of making sure that there is infrastructure, making sure there's Unistrut or some sort of support technology to support, the X rating, whether it's 5 or 7 times the amount of the weight of the actual device. There's a reason that there are organizations like Infocom, like AQAV, that teach folks in this industry how to do things properly and how to do them safely. Now, not knowing what happened in this instance here, whether it was someone who actually designed it or it was somebody's cousin, you don't really know. But this does illustrate, the need for professionals that know what they're doing and have the education to do it correctly.
Yeah. All right, guys. 100%, Tim. Right on the money here. That's why you need to know what you're doing and go with a firm that knows what they're doing. Let's wrap things up here. We've gone on for about an hour now. Definitely excited for InfoComm. I think we had some good discussions here. I wanted to make sure we definitely plugged the AV Tweet Up. I had a really good time attending that last year. It was just so cool to meet people in person that you just know from a Twitter handle, and you just know them by their little thumbnail, and then you actually shake their hand to meet them. It's a very cool thing. And last year was my first InfoComm. This is going to be my second, so my first time at Orlando. So I'm definitely a newbie to the Orlando Convention Center down there, the Orange County. But I will for sure be at the Tweet Up, which will be in room W223A on Thursday, June 18th at 4 p.m. I think I got all the information right. Does this look right, guys?
That looks good to me. Yeah.
Cool.
It's the couple of things about the Tweet Up. Bring business cards, and you don't have to be on Twitter. Those are the two things. Our underwriters have come alongside, and that's who makes it possible. The one thing that we're doing different this year than we've done in years past is the women in AV are kind of hanging out with us for the first year, so they have a reception as well. Between 4 and 5, same room, same bat time, same bat channel. So we're teaming up with them for the first hour, but we'll be there for the full 2 hours. Jennifer Willard has some cool things happening in that first hour. About 5 o'clock or so, we'll step down for a second, say thank you to all of our underwriters, and do some giveaways, and then we'll crank it back up, 5 minutes later or so, and give folks a chance just to get some drinks, get some food, and the whole idea behind, at least from the way we do it. It's not your typical industry party, right? This is not a night out for us. The reason we do it between 4 and 6 is we get it. There's a ton of things to do at InfoComm. Everybody has 4 or 5 or 6 parties to go to. This is your stop between the show and your evening's events. That's the whole idea of the Tweet Up. So.
Cool. Now, George, you were saying Wave, Women in AV, so they're going to be involved down here. I think Tim also touched on that. Just want to make sure we got that included there. So yeah, I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be a good time. And I don't know, any recommendations? What do I need to know about Orlando since it's my first time down at that rodeo?
It's humid.
It's hot and sticky.
And the closer you have a hotel to the convention center, the better off you are.
Okay, so a 3-mile walk isn't going to do it, right?
Yeah, a 3-mile walk might be a little bit much, yeah. But no, it's actually very accessible. The courtesy vans or the shuttle buses are really great. You just have to know where they are outside each hotel. They'll take you there. It's actually very, very, very easy.
Yeah.
Getting back from the parties, if they're far flung, that's always a problem. Some of the companies, do really big galas, and they take you miles away. Just know that if you're going to leave early before the shuttle buses, you have to find an alternate path.
Yeah.
But for InfoComm, as anyone knows, the biggest things are wear comfortable shoes, hydrate, and plan it out. Because if you don't plan it out, you're going to run in a circle.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's all I got. So you can follow Tim at TD Albright, but he will tell you to not follow him and actually follow AVNation TV instead. And George is at Tucker2s on pretty much all social media. So that's where you can look up these guys. We wanted to say thank you for joining us. It's been fun talking shop with you guys.
Thank
Jason,
you guys for having
else
us.
to add?
Yeah, just real quickly, I want to echo Nate's statement. Thank you guys for coming on the show tonight. We really enjoyed it. And, I know all three of you guys will be at InfoComm. I'll be watching from afar, so I really look forward to what AVNation can bring in terms of coverage. And Nate, I'll be obviously staying in touch with you. But, I think AVNation's a great resource for anybody watching the show from a distance who's not able to attend. So once again, thank you guys so much for coming on. And we look forward to seeing what you can do at InfoComm and getting your thoughts possibly afterwards.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us on.